Hey, it's Juck.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And welcome into the Juckeye post-game show. The Buckeyes big winners today, 20-13 in Happy Valley in front of a record crowd, the biggest they've ever had. An unbelievable victory, man. And a game that it felt like, to me, the Buckeyes were dominating the whole game, but not on the scoreboard. The story of the game, the end there, man. When you needed it most, could you run the ball? The final 10 plays, Ohio State, after an awesome goal line stand, pinned down at the 1-yard line. The final 10 plays, Will Howard for 4 yards, Quinshawn for 9, Quinshawn for 6, Quinshawn for 15, Trey for 6, Quinshawn for 2, Will for 3, Trey for 7, Trey for 0, Will for 7 to salt it away. 10 straight running plays, pinned down at the 1-yard line with a patchwork offensive line. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. If we had talked about this in the middle of the week and said that is how you were going to finish it for a top 5 win at Penn State, I don't know if I'd have believed you, man. I don't know. Absolutely don't know. Let's take it from the top. We start with the pregame announcement that Carson Hinsman is going to be starting at left guard, and we had heard some rumblings midweek about that. I wasn't buying it. I was not buying it at all. You had Austin Siereveld, who had played good enough at left guard that he earned snaps. And, well, the first 2 games, Donovan Jackson was hurt. He started the first 2 games, played good enough that he earned snaps with splitting reps with Tegra at right guard. So we would think immediately it would probably go to him, right? Then last week, Donovan gets injured, and it's Luke Montgomery off the bench. So that kind of adds Luke into the conversation. A lot of us had talked about Carson here and there, but I just didn't see it happening. They apparently wanted his experience. Carson looked fantastic. I mean, without watching the All-22, tough to say, how many plays somebody screwed up on the offensive line. There were no glaring weaknesses, and him and Donovan playing their first time in those spots for a start together, it was just fantastic. Maybe a couple of plays I saw that there was a linebacker slipped through like on the first possession, but all in all, they got a good push. They did fantastic. The offensive line as a whole, fantastic. The opening possession, there was a play there that did not get reviewed. Penn State comes out. Nick Singleton looked like he was stopped short, and they didn't give us a good replay. I absolutely was furious that we did not get to see that for a second time. The replay they got wasn't really down the line, and I thought we could have stopped it for a 3-and-out right off the rip. They ended up playing Drew Aller, Bo Pribula, and Tyler Warren at quarterback on the first possession of the game. We've heard about Andy Kotelnicki all year, Kotelnicki, their Penn State's offensive coordinator, nonstop, the best one they've had since Joe Moorhead. I got so sick of hearing about this guy. And Chip Kelly schooled that dude today, absolutely schooled him. But I definitely was not expecting what we saw out of Drew Aller early. He had 3 carries on the opening possession for about 20 yards, and the knee looked pretty good. But the Buckeyes forced them into a field goal, got the ball back, and this is when it took a turn for the worse. The noise was tremendous. The environment was crazy. A lot of Buckeye fans there for sure, but Will throws the pick 6, and you are now down 10-0. You've only run 3 offensive plays, and that is a tough, tough spot, man. So Ohio State gives it right back to them. If they give it right back to them on this next offensive possession, I thought right there that could have been a totally different game. But they got JJ involved, Quinshawn with a good 10-yard run, another 22-yard run from Quinn, and then the 25-yard throwback to Emeka for the touchdown, which was a really cleverly designed play. Another instance of Chip schooling Andy Kotelnicki. And that possession right there was so huge in that game. Because if you don't get it there, if you give the ball back and they end up scoring, like things just might look totally different. But not just that. At that point in the game, in the first quarter, you had Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka, Quinshawn Judkins, Travion Henderson, all having touched the ball already, which something that we don't usually see that early in the game. I thought that was really smart. I felt like Chip did it intentionally. It was great. And then you get BI involved, And Brandon Innes gets a touchdown right there to start the second quarter. And at that point, 14-10 Buckeyes, all these talented players involved. The ensuing possession on defense, you got Mitchell Melton in there. You got Caden McDonald in there. Mitchell Melton makes a good tackle. And that's a huge spot right there to have that defensive depth in. You know, it's something we've talked about all week. They definitely made a conscious effort to get that done. Don't know the total snap count. But down 14-10, Penn State had Bo Prabula in there. He kind of missed a wide open receiver on a low ball that they ruled a catch and then overturned. And on the ensuing possession, we got a Jelani sighting. So another super talented Buckeye getting the ball in his hands, the bobbling catch. That was so exciting. Ryan Day was even pumped up for it on the sidelines. You got the first down inside the 20, and Will Howard runs it down the left sideline. Looks like a touchdown. Ball gets punched out at the 1, hits off of his thigh, and goes out of bounds. Now, called a touchdown on the field, and we have heard since the beginning of replay that it's got to be conclusive. And in my opinion, for that to be conclusive, you have got to have a camera straight down the sideline and the end zone and the goal line. Like you have to be able to see both of those views, or else that can't possibly be conclusive, right? Especially enough to overturn it. They overturn it anyway, call it a touchdown. And I'm not crying about it. I wasn't crying about it at the time, but that is a 7-point call right there that you just overturned on something that I just don't feel like you could be conclusive about. Huge break for Penn State, obviously. They get it up to around the 50. This is right before halftime. James Franklin, puzzling decision, man. And this is why Penn State fans cannot stand this guy. You got a minute left. He's down 4 points with 3 timeouts. He lets 30 seconds burn off the clock almost immediately. You're an underdog at home, down by 4, and you're just letting 30 seconds burn off. I don't get it. So instead of being aggressive, he's scared to leave some time on the clock for Ohio State if they don't get the first down. They end up picking it up, run by Drew, and then the big pass to Trey Wallace down to the 1-yard line. Great catch by him with IGB draped all over him. And if they had more time in that scenario, they could have run the ball down in the goal line. They didn't, so they got to pass it. And IGB with that ridiculous pick. That was, it went from like immediately I thought it was a catch. I thought Penn State had a touchdown. My nephew runs down. He's like, you see that pick? I was back like 5 minutes. I was like, what are you talking about? And then I see it in the replay. IGB had it. That was so bang, bang, so Johnny on the spot. And that kid is so boomer bust. Talk about bringing it, though. He brought the juice, and that's what I wanted to see this game. I wanted to see emotion. I wanted to see these guys fired up. It was so tremendous. It was like a different team than the team that took the field last week. From start to finish, offense and defense, all the fire, all the passion. It was all over the sidelines. I don't know exactly what this is. I don't know what this is. If somebody can clue me in as to what the hell this is, we saw it from both teams, and I'm not sure what it's in reference to, but it's got to be something. But it was awesome, man. It was awesome. So you go into halftime, 14-10. Ohio State at that point had 2 turnovers to Penn State's 1, and that was the entire difference in the game. Will Howard responsible for both of those turnovers. The Buckeyes had 192 total yards, 142 for Penn State. The Ohio State backs were carrying the ball just under 6 yards a clip. The Buckeye run-pass ratio, which was kind of off last week, 66% run when you couldn't run, something I was talking about earlier this week, back to level at 15-16 at halftime. Drew Aller, Buckeyes defense had held him to just 6 of 13, no touchdowns and a pick. Penn State wide receivers at halftime had just 2 catches. And the biggest and most important thing, in my opinion, Tyler Warren, who is a star, 0 catches at halftime, not one single catch. The secondary was totally locked in. Caleb Downs was fantastic all day. The Ohio State offensive line in that first half just flat out impressed the hell out of me. And I don't know about you guys, but there was a time when I was feeling pretty down in the middle of this week that if we saw this offensive line, I basically said, I think we'll see everything we need to know with this line, whether there's reason for hope or reason to feel pretty pessimistic about the odds of this line moving forward as we go on throughout the rest of the season. I mean, they couldn't have made me feel any better about it. That's for sure. played their butts off. It was so cool, man. But second half, Buckeyes take it down. You get the 46-yard field goal. And that was one of my questions of the week and something I can't wait to talk to my buddy Ron about, because I had predicted 24-20 Buckeyes win. And Ron called me out and said, you realize you're predicting a field goal, which I did not. And had I thought about it before, I would have reconsidered and probably not put that field goal prediction in there. We end up getting that field goal from our guy Fielding, and that was a butt clencher moment, but he got it, man. He nailed it. The second field goal he made was a little tighter. That sucker was a 39-yarder, and I felt like the entire time, first off, it felt like it was in the air for like 10 seconds, and it was headed straight towards the upright. I mean, I don't know how that thing went in, but as soon as it went in, it looked like it hooked right back out. It was awesome, man. So score on their first possession, the field goal, and then Penn State kicks a field goal. So they both scored on their first possession right out of halftime. And then you get the back-to-back sacks with the Cody Simon blitz and then the coverage sack by JT and Kenyatta. That was so cool to watch. 2 back-to-back sacks. Been a while since we've seen that. So the Bucks are up 17-13 late in the third. And then we get that missed big one by JJ, man. That sucker should have been a touchdown. That sucked. That is not something we're going to often see. They said they thought he might have got it lost in the sun. I don't know. We saw a little stutter step that slowed him down a bit, but that looked like it should have been a touchdown very easily for him. Another catch from Brandon Inniss, had all the fire and all the juice, and that's why I love that kid out there, man. He's just not just a tremendous football player, but he brings it. Absolutely brings it. And then you had the Quinshawn fumble / incompletion, and I don't know what we're doing in the sport of football. You got the guy in Pereira who was the director of NFL officiating, and he said, I don't know exactly what the rule is because it's such a gray area on what a catch is, which is just, it blows my mind. But the Buckeyes, no matter how you view it, they either catch a break or it was the proper call. I don't know, because I'm just as confused as Mike Pereira. But they get the ball at the 40, 3rd and 9, huge play, completion to JJ, and that ends up in that second field goal that Fielding made, that 39-yarder. And then you're at 20-13 with 10 minutes left. And again, at that point, I'm just thinking to myself, it sure feels like this game should not be anywhere near as close as it is. And then you get the nightmare scenario where Penn State with a big completion to Tyler Warren, and then they line him up at quarterback, and the kid takes it down inside the 1 yard or inside the 3 yard line. Tyleek at that point got hurt. I don't know the status on that. Maybe you guys know if you've been reading, but they're down there with the chance to tie the game inside the 3 in the waning minutes of the game. Buckeyes stuff them on first, stuff them on second, stuff them on third, and on fourth down, superstar offensive coordinator for Penn State, Andy Kolenicki, gets tricky with it and puts a tackle with number 71 wide, puts him in motion. He's screwing around in the biggest moment of the game for Penn State. This guy absolutely failed. Tyler Warren didn't touch the ball one time. The kid that brought him all the way down the field doesn't get a chance to touch the ball at all. Props to him. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. I didn't want to see that kid lining up a quarterback again. Turnover on downs, and that's when the Bucks take over at the 2 yard line. And again, when you needed it most, could you run the ball? And they showed us what they got. That was not just running the ball, but it was running it with attitude, salting the game away. Unbelievable. A fantastic performance. They made that Penn State offense look silly. They really did. Final stats. Somehow they mustered up 270 total yards against this Ohio State defense. Sure didn't even feel like it to me. I don't know what their third down percentage was. I'm sure it was better than last year when they were like 1 for 12 against Ohio State. They started off with 2 third down pickups on the first possession. And it looked like to me at that point, they were going to be moving the ball a little bit on us today. Nope. They didn't score a touchdown offensively. Drew Aller, 12 for 20 for 146 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. Tyler Warren, 3 rushes for 47 yards, 4 receptions for 47 yards. So you hold Tyler Warren to under 100 total yards, which is huge. Their wide receivers, 10 total receptions, 11 total receptions from their wide receivers. Jeremiah Smith, one of my biggest stats always, is targets for JJ. Targets for JJ, I want to see 6 minimum every week. 7 targets for JJ, 4 receptions, 55 yards. Nice to see that. But the way they spread it out, tremendous. You had targets go to JJ, Brandon Innes, Emeka, Trey, Jelani, Carnell Tate, Quinshawn, and G. Scott, all getting targets. 7 of them, multiple targets. Will Howard on the day, 16 for 24, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He definitely didn't play great. His short stuff was very crisp and on point. But when you needed him the most, he showed up. And the whole team did. So a fantastic game all in all. And now I'm going to bring on my brother Ron from the Best Damn Media. And we were on the Morning Roast talking about this game earlier in the week. And I cannot wait to recap now because I don't feel like either of us were feeling great about this game coming off of just the lackluster performance against Nebraska. And it's not about the tight win. It's just about the way the team looked. Whatever it was that went on in the Woody this week, they got these guys ready to go. And it was just a totally different team. So let's bring up my man, Ron James.
Juck, how's it going?
Buddy, I'm talking fast. I'm pumped up. I'm excited. I feel like everything is right where we thought it would be at this point in the season when we were talking preseason. A small little loss, maybe out at Oregon. You beat Penn State, and you're in position to make it to the Big Ten championship at this point in the season. Kind of how I saw it shaping up. I thought we might win that game in Oregon. Didn't think we'd lose it, but we lost it by a smidge. And despite all the negativity and adversity we've been through and Josh Simmons and everything, like right now, I feel like we're right where we thought we were going to be. And I feel just as confident as I did back then now. All of a sudden, because of this offensive line, they have re-energized me again. They look tremendous today.
Everything is still in front of the Buckeyes, and to see them play with that level of energy today has to be reassuring for Buckeye fans. I throughout the week, I said, I don't really have a good explanation for how or why the Buckeyes are going to win this game. All I can say is James Franklin's the other coach. So like that's the confidence that I have in the Buckeyes. Like every frustration that I have with Ryan Day, we can address and deal with in the future if necessary. But I felt like, as Chris Drew said this morning on the college football pregame show, Ryan Day is the Michael Jordan of James Franklin's. And I think he's proved like why he's the best at teams that are frustrated with their head coach. At least Ryan Day gets those games done. And that was a huge win by his team. And a lot of the things that we were worried about with this team, attitude, energy, after that first pick, it seemed like this team really picked it up.
I totally agree. And that was my biggest issue last week was, I don't care if you play a tough game. I respected Nebraska more than most. That game against Indiana that they got totally smashed, they gave up 5 turnovers in that game. Like that makes for a really lopsided score. Indiana definitely was the better team, but it wasn't that big of a margin. And then they came in to play their Super Bowl in Columbus. I get all that. I got no problem with a close win against a team like that, a game team, coached by a guy that I really respect in Matt Rule. My issue was the energy, the juice. It didn't even look like they wanted to be there. And people that I talk to who have season tickets, we talk a lot down by the sidelines. Yeah, it just didn't seem like they're themselves. And that to me was like kind of concerning, really concerning. And like you said, man, the juice that came out today at Penn State, which I expected would be better just because of the environment. Every time we go into Penn State, it just seems to really get the guys amped up. But what we saw today was next level. I don't feel like we've seen a Buckeye team quite that openly energetic and kind of taunting the sideline. Like everything we saw was just something we haven't seen in a really long time. And It's probably got a goofy smile plastered on my face.
Same here. And just to add to that, you talk about the taunting back and forth. I do have a little background on the no-fly zone symbol.
Yes. What is that?
So that is something started by, I feel like I'm the perfect guy to bring this information to the show. It started by a Pittsburgh guy, Daquan Hardy, the cornerback for the Buffalo Bills, former Penn State corner and safety. It was something that they started a few years back in camp. And the Buckeyes did it occasionally too. And like Penn State fans would get mad and say the Buckeyes were stealing it from them. Their little no-fly zone thing. So they were going back and forth, doing that back and forth throughout the game. And that's kind of been a thing back and forth between these teams the past couple of years. So it was funny to see that come out. And then you talk about the juice. I have even more news to report. While you were giving your intro here, I was on Instagram Live watching Brandon Innis's post-game live on his Instagram. And man, if you want to see the juice from this Buckeye team, I mean, you saw it. Chip Kelly made an appearance on there. We got a lot of F Penn States, a couple middle fingers. It looks like this team heard the chatter coming into this game. And, I mean, they seem really pumped up after this win. So to see these guys locked in, energized, and like you said, aware that everything is still in front of them, as depressing and difficult as these past couple weeks have been for Buckeye fans, not necessarily looking like the team that they wanted to see preseason, the one that we keep hearing $20 million this, $20 million that. It looked like a $20 million team out there. I mean, there's plenty of things that you'd still like to see fixed, but it would have been my biggest dread coming into this week was I had the confidence that the Buckeyes were going to find a way because James Franklin, obviously. But it felt like the fire Ryan Day noise was starting to get so loud, and I was not ready to fire Ryan Day in week 10. I was prepared to do it if we lost this game, but I wasn't ready. And the fact that the Buckeyes were able to feel like they locked in and remind everyone, like, hey, we are the team that you thought we were preseason. We have our heads on straight, and we're going to figure this thing out. And that reminder and seeing them put their foot down, it feels like someone said it's the circle of being an Ohio State fan. And we're at that point in the season where everybody shifts from fire Ryan Day to Penn State is fraudulent. So to be at that point, like you are here on the experience of an Ohio State fan, and it does feel good. It feels like the past couple of weeks we haven't been smiling on these post games, and to have a game that we were able to enjoy, because after that first interception, I promise you, that was the first time doubt crept in this week, and I said, I'm done. Like, we're cooked. I'm going to have to do this. I'm starting to give myself the prep talk of how difficult this postgame could potentially be. And then after the Buckeyes drove down the field, my feet went from, you know how you sit up when you're playing the game? I laid back on the couch and got back under the covers because I was like, I'm going to enjoy my Saturday, because from that point on, it felt like the Buckeyes were in mode and they were never going to release that hold that they had on the game. And even when Penn State kind of battled back, after I saw that drive where the Buckeyes came down and scored after the interception, it felt like the Buckeyes knew they were the better team on the field today.
And it certainly looked like it right off the rip to me. It's like, man, the Bucks are a better team here, and they consistently showed it all game. I was surprised that it just, didn't show up on the scoreboard, and they were able to grit through that, to their credit, because sometimes you can come out of those and lose and still feel like you're the better team. But that possession after that pick six was so big to me. I was like, man, if they can get it together, regroup with this environment, and go down and put something together, it's going to be all the difference. If they give it right back, this could be over. It could have been over early. And to their credit, man, they absolutely did. But to your point about the chatter this week, you and I spend a lot of time talking to Buckeye fans, at least 5 hours a week minimum, behind a microphone. I'm with you, man. It was, to me, such a pivotal game, and not just this season, but for Ryan Day's tenure, in regards to the amount of people who were sitting on the fence over this game. Like, the amount of people who I felt had thrown down the gauntlet and said, look, I've supported this guy, but at this point, if you don't win this one, or if you get embarrassed, like, I'm just done. I just can't do it anymore. And boom, there they go. They bounce back, and not only do they get the win, but they do it in a way that I think a lot of those people were on the fence say, okay, I feel much better now. I was overreacting. And I'll be honest, man, I'm right with them. I was feeling that wave of emotions too. I absolutely was. And I have supported Ryan Day for, I came into this year saying he's got 2 years of buy-in for me. Like, the changes that he made, 2 years of buy-in, Started doubting that this week because some of the things that he said he was changing didn't seem like they were changing. Things like the depth, just a lot of things that I felt running the quarterback. By the way, we saw plenty of that today. Outside of that fumble, it was fantastic, right? But it is what it is. Sometimes those will just get punched out at the right time. And it was a hell of a play by the defender. And I still think that, Ron, you don't have conclusive evidence unless you have a camera down both lines. That it cannot be conclusive. It can't. Right? Like, what do they tell us nonstop ad nauseum? Now, I agree. Like, I don't really like that being the standard. I would like to sometimes be able to use common sense, and sometimes we know that they're making the wrong call, but there isn't technically conclusive evidence, so they don't make that call. I would like to be able to use common sense, and maybe, this one, maybe it looked like to more people than not that it did go over the pylon, and I might agree. I didn't even look at it that close because I'm like, there's no way. It's not conclusive. You can't say that for sure. But sure enough, they made the call. What was your take on that call?
I feel like the Buckeyes deserve to lose that call. Protect the football. and that's where I'm at with that one. Like, the Buckeyes have been the beneficiary of the referees and been on the wrong side of the referees plenty of times, and that's just football. And I feel like the Buckeyes need to, again, go out and assert their will against these opponents and not leave it in the hands of the referee. So I just want to see Will Howard put two hands on the ball in that situation, but to see the Buckeyes respond, get the stop, and not let it break them. And you saw the Buckeyes have a couple of moments where it felt like they could have been broken or could have given up, and the Buckeyes really buckled down and remained in the game and kept control of it. And like, not even the point where like they would mess up and allow Penn State to creep back in with some sort of confidence. I truly believe, like, when I say I did not worry about Penn State taking this game back over after that first Chip Kelly touchdown, the rest of the game, it just felt like the Buckeyes were more physical. Like, I don't know about you. Did it feel like the physicality by the Buckeyes stood out today against Penn State? I feel like when Penn State and the Buckeyes normally match up, they seem pretty even in the trenches and on the level of physicality. And you've seen this Buckeye team get out physical in years past. And I can't remember the last time it felt like the Buckeyes were playing an opponent worth something where it felt like the Buckeyes were the more physical team.
I'm 100% with you on that point. And, in years past, it's always kind of irked me playing Penn State because, we follow recruiting closely, and by all measures, the Buckeyes should always be the more physical team against Penn State. And usually it feels to me like they just coach them up so much better, and they always seem to win the lines of scrimmage or at least get a stalemate. Today, I thought the Buckeyes were clearly the more physical team on both sides of the ball. And man, what a great time to see that. Did not feel like that to me against Oregon, and I thought it would going into that game. But you're right. When we look back at the big talent-equated games, and I don't even really consider this as a talent-equated game, though I'm not knocking Penn State. They're a really, really good team. I totally think they're a top 5 team, but not quite talent-equated. But yeah, the Buckeyes dominated the lines of scrimmage, in my opinion, for sure. Special teams. One of my big questions heading in, were special teams going to make an impact? You roasted me about my pick with the field goal, and I said, shit, Ron's right. And we saw some clutch kicks, which I'll tell you what, man, I was surprised. And that second one, dude, that sure looked like it was heading for the uprights to me. And it hung in the air for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely made us sweat it out, but shout out to Jaden Fielding, and credit where credit is due. I mean, if you're going to blast a kid when he misses a 46-yarder, you got to give him credit when he makes one. So, I mean, shouts out to the special teams getting things right. I mean, I saw people not very happy about the punts, especially we saw like an 82-yarder in the early block this morning. So to see the Buckeyes struggle a little bit in the punt game, I think we had a punt of like a net 32 yards, a little frustrating there. But to see them take a step forward and be able to make the field goals, that's great for me as a Buckeye fan, because we were throwing out hypotheticals. All right, now what's 4-down territory look like now with zero confidence in the kicking game? And to see the Buckeyes not completely abandon it in week 10 and stick with their guy. I mean, they have other scholarship kickers. Jaden has been the guy. He's made the mistakes. They've allowed him to continue to correct them. We saw the kicks out of bounds. He came back and had a better game the following week. As far as the kickoffs, they said he was dealing with a little bit of an injury. you saw the missed kicks last week, and he comes back and gets 2 of them. So, I mean, shouts out to Jaden Fielding, and it's a good thing. A lot of the things that we saw the Buckeyes struggle with or seem to be concerns the past 2 weeks, it seemed like the Buckeyes really addressed them this week.
I think you're right. Basically, every single thing that we pointed out that was lacking, from the depth to running will to the field goals to the lack of juice, it all was checked off today. Pretty flawless game outside of the turnovers. I mean, it was just everything you could ask for to me. I don't want to say flawless game, but it just felt so good on all fronts to me. The defense looked really good. The pressure looked good. You had the back-to-back sacks. The juice was all there. Like, it was just a very complete game. Outside of those 2 turnovers, that looks like a blowout. You know what I mean?
And that's exactly what I was just going to get into. The fact that when you look at the box score, you see 20-13. And we talked about our confidence throughout that game, not really worrying. It felt like the Buckeyes always had that in hand. And one of the things that Buckeye fans wanted to see coming into this game was not only can you beat Penn State, but are you that team that we thought you were preseason? And while there were flaws there, this team showed the ability that if they have things clicking and if they're able to get all things going together, that this team can be a juggernaut of a team, and they would have made this top 5 matchup look like 2 teams that didn't belong on the field if the Buckeyes were able to completely execute 4 quarters of football. And I feel like it gives Buckeye fans hope that if they are able to put that together, they can be the juggernaut that we thought that they would be preseason. And while it doesn't look as pretty on the scoreboard, Buckeye fans that watch the game, when they watch back the tape, they're going to see how much meat was left on the bone in this game. And it's still early. I mean, well, it sounds crazy, but with how long this season is and how with a 12-team playoff, it is still early in the Buckeye season, and they have plenty of time to continue to correct these issues. And if they get all things clicking, this is a top 3 team in the country.
Absolutely, it's early. I mean, if they can make a run through the playoffs, we just crossed the halfway point, which is wild to say. One of my questions heading into the game was what we saw at Oregon at Autzen Stadium was the crowd and the Oregon faithful literally steal a possession from Ohio State, where we saw 3 penalties on a possession. Would Penn State be able to do that? Could Happy Valley affect the game? I thought that the Buckeyes did a fantastic game taking them out of it. We didn't see much of any effect at all on them. In fact, I think they helped them.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, and am I making up fan fiction here? As I was watching the game, I'm thinking, well, in this situation, it probably does help in this crazy environment when the communication between the left guard and center are 2 centers. A guy that's played center here at Ohio State before, at least having those 2 guys on the same page. If Carson Hinsman, a guy, I mean, we know how smart centers need to be and how much they need to know and be able to identify. Having that experience of 12 games starting for the Buckeyes and then moving to left guard and being there for Seth McLaughlin and being able to be that guy next to him and kind of shore that up between him and Donovan Jackson playing a new position. Did you give that any consideration that, hey, maybe Carson Hinsman's experience at center in these types of environments could have been an ease for Seth McLaughlin?
I had not going in, but now that you say it, I mean, it makes perfect sense. What did you think of that decision? When we first heard it floated earlier on this week, I thought that it was just some people that were hopeful, because a lot of people have been kind of bringing him up lately. And I felt like they were bringing him up in a sense like, hey, this guy started last year. Why are we not seeing him get a chance? Because the guards played so, they were bad last week. The guards were bad as well. And I mean, Austin, Integra, they weren't so hot. Probably their worst game so far, both of them. And that was rotating at right guard. They both had a lot of busted plays. It was just lousy. And it just seemed to me like you were absolutely going to start Austin this game. I thought, maybe Luke would be in consideration because they brought him in, but he hasn't put much film on tape at all. And I was just pretty much 100% that's going to be Austin. The Hinsman stuff, I thought, was just people trying to hope for a solution to pop out of nowhere and be like, oh yeah, here we go. And sure as shit, we're sitting here like, wow, that looked really good. That looked really good from Carson. Where's he been then in that case? But the limited action we've seen him in this year, it's not looked very good. Not at all.
Yeah, it's like Buckeyes were sitting around like, where could we find a Power 5 starter with a year's worth of starting experience that we could put in on the offensive line? You're out of the doghouse. Carson, come on back. Like, to see him be able to step in, and a lot of people were talking when we got Seth, could Seth potentially kick out to guard and
Yeah.
Carson remain at center? To have a guy like that waiting in the wings and be able to step in and play like that, huge for the Buckeyes. And it feels like every week we're constantly turning up the heat on Justin Fry's seat and then throwing water on it and then cranking the heat up and throwing water on it. And I feel like the fact that he's been able to deal with all of these punches, because I mean, it's not the first time that the Buckeyes have went into a season saying if we lose our left tackle, we are toast. And we've just been able to skate and get by. And we've taken multiple punches to this offensive line. And while it hasn't always looked perfect, they keep coming back with answers. And you have, again, credit where credit's due. I'm always quick to judge Justin Fry when he has his issues, but to be put in the situation and the pressure cooker with all of the eyes on this program, Ryan Day, his staff, the criticism, his recruiting, all of this, to be able to continue to get a line ready to play week in and week out with all of these question marks, you have to applaud it.
I think this was probably his best performance as a coach. From the call to put Hinsman in there, which I'm sure it wasn't just his, but that's a ballsy call, man. Guy has not been out there hardly at all this year. You got Donovan in his first start ever at left tackle, which is so much different than playing guard. And to put him next to a guy who's not been playing, I mean, that's a ballsy move. And what we saw was not just really good offensive line play, but offensive line play with an attitude, and that comes from the top. And absolutely, I definitely rip into Justin Fry when I feel like he's made a mistake or screwed something up on the recruiting trail or made a decision I don't agree with. This was awesome. He deserves a lot of props for this performance. It was fantastic. Moving forward, I think they've found a recipe that they can stick with and now continue to rep through Purdue, through Northwestern. I kind of wish they'd have started it right after the Oregon game, because at this point we would have 3 weeks in, and we're not there now. But regardless, now you got 3 weeks before you play Indiana, a really tough competition. And I think that that's plenty of time to get these guys working together. It doesn't seem like there'd be any reason to make any changes. Are you pretty confident in how this is going to look like this going forward?
I'm confident in how this looks. I don't know how confident I am it's going to look like this going forward. It seems like there's we'll see once they go back and watch the tape, but it seemed like they were still open to the idea this week of Zen potentially playing when healthy. But you have to like the way it looks. And if I'm Donovan Jackson, I'm pulling Ryan Day to the side and like, my agent wants me to stay at left tackle. Like, he's making money. He has to be making money with how he's playing out there. I know he had a couple. I mean, he went up against one of the best pass rushers in college football, and to be able to hold your own. Yeah, did he get beat? Sure, but he hasn't been repping a tackle all year. So, I mean, NFL GMs love nothing more than a guard that can kick out to tackle, or tackle that can kick in the guard, one that can play center. So for him to be able to put that tackle tape out there before the NFL, I think he's probably loving this moment to shine at left tackle as well.
I love his attitude. He's so smart. I thought that just based on his smarts and everything we know about him with his attitude, that he would definitely do pretty good out there. But it is just such a different position. It really is. So many different responsibilities out there. And what a game performance against Abdul Carter. I was surprised, Ron. I thought they would bring more heat. I thought they would absolutely try to confuse the hell out of this offensive line. I think maybe looking back, they'll think maybe they made a mistake at not trying a little harder at that, because it really didn't seem like they did too much. In fact, I felt the Ohio State defensive line and defense in general, the front seven, brought a whole lot more action than Penn State did, which really surprised me.
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't try to mix it up more. We talked about it earlier this week. I said maybe they're limiting Will Howard's or runs because they think he's going to be taking more hits behind a makeshift offensive line. And for the most part, I felt like they did their job. I didn't see any moments where I'm like cringing, thinking about like scrolling through the depth chart, like, oh, if Will has to go out, like, what are they about to do? So like to see Will be able to stay clean for the most part and then still not be afraid to run him this week, I thought spoke highly of their belief behind this offensive line.
I'm with you. There was absolutely nothing about that game that looked any different than any other game against even a subpar opponent. Like there was nothing there that looked from the offensive line's perspective. I mean, like the Marshall game, you know what I mean? Like they didn't even play that good against Marshall. They kept Will clean. They ran the ball. The way they were able to run the ball at the end with those 10 straight runs when you're tired at the end of the game in a huge moment, like you just can't say enough about that. It was just amazing.
I saw someone say on the timeline, you better be able to run the ball. You're starting 5 guards. You got all these guards on the offensive line. I hope they're going to be able to run the football this year. But to be able to get through that test, and now, I mean, I'm not sure what's going on in that Oregon-Michigan game, but it feels like the Buckeyes have everything ahead of them. And if they can continue to win out, the Buckeyes are handling business. The one thing that has really calmed me is seeing Donovan Jackson slide into that position at left tackle and know that the Buckeyes don't have this insane what if at left tackle, and the Buckeyes still have at least a game worth of film of, okay, we faced off against a top 5 team and we saw what this offensive line can look like. It felt like still an unknown with Zen of how that would have continued to play out. So if the Buckeyes are able to maintain this level of production from the offensive line, I feel like the Buckeyes are back on track.
I think you're right. The game, I believe it's 7-7 with Oregon and Michigan. And while those Duck fans are not watching, because we have a lot of them who tune in to the show, I'm going to use it as an opportunity to pay off a bet, because I always pay off my bets. So this was my bet for the game. Should the Buckeyes lose, I'm about to pay it off, Ron.
Man, that stinks.
There we go. That paid off.
Oh man, that is a rough one. But hey, if the Buckeyes keep it up, you might get a chance to run that bet back in the Big Ten championship game.
I haven't even really got into it in my head, but now this Indiana game is everything, providing we handle business, with Northwestern and Purdue, who both of which are just terrible this year. So it's going to be kind of boring, honestly, for us for the next couple of weeks talking about those two pre-games and post-game shows. It's going to be like on to the next, but that game against Indiana is something now. And these guys, they're so good. That offense is the kind of offense that gives us fits. I actually did want to talk. We talked on was it Friday or Thursday? We talked
Thursday.
We talked Thursday about Tyler Warren and who was going to be guarding him for the most part. Would Sonny do a good job on him? Looked like Caleb had him pretty much locked down for most of the day to me. Not a single reception in the first half. Are you kidding me? This is the kid that caught 16 balls against USC? Yeah, that's amazing, Ron. That's amazing.
They also had an appearance of Jermaine Matthews on Tyler Warren.
I missed that.
They called it out on the broadcast because they said we're surprised that they didn't try to take advantage of that size disadvantage between 5'11" Matthews and Tyler Warren. So the Buckeyes switching it up.
That is something. I definitely thought that they would try to take advantage of Sonny's size there, but Caleb and Jermaine, much smaller than that kid. That was fantastic. I kind of am looking forward to seeing the all 22 to look at that coverage throughout the game, because I really missed that on the TV copy. It's something I don't ever see coverages at all. I'm looking at the lines. I'm looking at the ball.
Yeah, I always say when I watch football the first time I'm watching a game, it's like I'm at a bar. Like I'm just following the ball, keeping up with the score, who scored there, who caught that one. I'm not really watching random players. And then throughout the week, I'll either watch all 22 or rewatch the TV copy, and I'm rewinding it, playing it, different things like that. Before I get out of here, I did want to ask you, I see a lot of Indiana talk in the chat. I see a Let's Hire Signetti. How concerned are you going into that game? Because while I do respect Indiana and what they've done this season, I have a little bit of like what Chris Drew said, Ryan Day's the Michael Jordan of James Franklin's. Ryan Day wins these games. He doesn't lose these types of games. And while it can be frustrating, while some of them may look ugly, it's the one thing to Ryan Day's credit. He'll lose the big one. He wins the ones that he's supposed to win. And I feel like James Franklin kind of gets a bad rap because, everyone keeps showing James Franklin 1-14 against top 5 teams. I've never heard anyone say James Franklin is a top 5 coach. So why would you think James Franklin is going to beat top 5 teams? No one thinks he's a top 5 coach. So how's he overrated? He seems to be properly rated. And some people try to occasionally put higher expectations on him than I think he's deserved or ever earned. So I don't think he's that overrated. I think the Buckeyes have an opportunity to continue to impose their will on the Big Ten and just show, hey, we are a better team. We are cut above everyone. And the way that they dominated Penn State today, even though the score doesn't show it, I feel like the Buckeyes have an opportunity to do the same thing against Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Franklin goes, I'm with you. Like, this guy's been, I think, properly by the general public placed exactly as he is as a coach. And you as a Pennsylvania resident would know more of the fan attitude towards him, but I am just surprised that they're okay with Franklin. Ron, that halftime possession heading into halftime where he just wasted 30 seconds because he was scared to not get the first down and give the ball back to Ohio State with any time left. And then you get down, you hit the big one, you get down to the 1 yard line. You can't run the ball because now you've burned all this time. I mean, it's crap like that. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it's that kind of stuff that they've been just furious with this guy forever. And it's like he just repeats the same thing over and over again.
It's the James Franklin experience. I mean, even down to the stepping over the guy taunting penalty. Like, it's just like undisciplined things like that. The inability to score on the 1 yard line. You see the multiple play calls, the silliness of let's bring 71 in motion. I saw Caleb Downs take that block on head on and completely shed it. Like, you just brought a tackle in motion to take on, you know what I mean, an all-American safety, and he sheds the block and still gets in on the play. It's just sometimes I feel like he just I have no words for it. It's just the James Franklin experience. And I feel like that game was just another masterclass in that experience.
Yeah. As far as the Bucks in Indiana, you make a great point. Ryan Day wins all those games he's supposed to win. I don't know, Ron, if we've ever seen this. I mean, like, because we're just not sure what they are, right? No matter what that line is between Indiana and Ohio State, I don't know that, like, they're just going to be throwing crap against the wall. Like, they've not seen this Indiana team match up against a school with the kind of athletes that Ohio State has. And until they see that one time, I don't think anybody knows how to properly gauge these guys. Now, I think that it is going to be a bit of a shock for that Indiana team when they go up against Ohio State. But I also think that offense, the way they run it, is still going to be like one of those, just a bitch to play. It's going to be really obnoxious to watch. I think they're going to put up points, but ultimately, I think the Buckeyes will win that game handily. That's my opinion on it. But if I'm way wrong on that, I wouldn't be surprised, because I still am not sure just exactly who they are, though I'm seeing in the chat they're down 10-0, and I know they got Curtis Rourke back this week. So that gives me some hope.
Yeah, man. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to hold up their end of the bargain as far as giving the Buckeyes another big win. If they lose to MSU, I would imagine the logo's not even going to be able to keep them in the top 25. People are going to jump ship so fast.
Yep.
So that's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. But I'm right there with you. You will not be alone in that take, as far as I think the Buckeyes handle business and remind people why, they're the logo that people think about when they hear Big Ten. Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me, brother. I appreciate you, as always, hopping on with me. Ron, tell everybody where they can find you, bro.
If you want to find me, you could find me on Twitter at 2Ts2_TEES. You could find me weekdays, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. on the Best Damn Media YouTube for the Buckeye Roast. You check that show out with me and Q. And Wednesdays with Chris Drew in the Bleacher Report app at 5 p.m. for the weekly Ohio State preview. So be sure to check us out. And then, of course, here on Postgames. Appreciate you having me, Juck.
Thank you, Ron. And Ron does a great job in the mornings. If you like to watch Juck on Bucks at 9:30 and you get up a little earlier, check out the morning roast with him and Q. It's how I start my day when I'm prepping. Appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. My guy, Ron, always bringing the juice, man. We have a fun time. Couple of super chats to get to. Nicholas B., a new member of Menace to Sports. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Jason Kane with the $2. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. What a great game. I'm telling you, man, I'm on cloud nine, and I'm going to feel this way for quite some time now because, like I said, we are going into two, Big Ten games, which you always got to respect playing a Big Ten game. We got the Wrigley Field game coming up. How do you guys feel about the Wrigley Field game? This is not for me. This is absolutely not for me. I know a lot of Buckeye fans are traveling because they want to go experience a game at Wrigley. If I'm going to Wrigley, it's for a Cubs game. I don't want to see a football game there. It's a novelty. If I'm traveling and spending the money to go travel to watch an away game, I want to go experience a college football atmosphere. So that one's not for me. But we do got that puppy coming up. Coach Zach, USMC vet, $1.99. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you so much. Coach Zach says, felt like they rotated more today. Go Bucks. OHIO. It felt definitely to me like they did early. And I'm always curious, though, because sometimes I feel like that, or sometimes I feel like they didn't. And then I see the final snap counts, and I was way off. So I'm careful to come out definitively and say that in the postgame show until I see those numbers. But I'm with you. Early on, you had BI, involved early. And then the following possession after the BI touchdown, which was a really big moment in the game, and early on, you had Mitch Melton in there. You had Caden McDonald in there. Not the first time they've been in early, so sometimes it peters out relatively quickly. But no, I did feel the same way. Kyle B., our guy. Kyle, thank you so much, man. So proud of the O-line. I'm telling you, it feels like that to me as well. Pride. I feel proud of these guys. They've had a rough go, no doubt. They definitely have been put in a sticky situation, having to move a lot of pieces around. Not been easy for any of them. And you saw a lot of selflessness by Donovan Jackson, who's a guy who could be in the NFL. Absolutely, coach. I'll move out, whatever it takes to help the team. So he moves out there to left tackle when he could be putting more film in his regular position for the National Football League, for the draft. Maybe this helps him. Maybe it hurts him. Maybe he wants to put more film on at guard. It's not like he's played the greatest this year. So he's going to do it because that's what the team needs. The way they played with the fire, though, that the juice, the fire, the execution, it was great. It was great. It makes me feel fantastic. I absolutely love it. Brickhouse 20, a member for 6 months. Brickhouse says, happy Saturday. Buckeyes win. Toledo Rockets win. My 3-year-old went on the potty. I'm just having an awesome day. Go Bucks, go Rockets, TOL. Congratulations, man. It is a great Saturday. Bucks win. Congrats on your Rockets. I'm an Akron Zips fan for my local MAC team. So, I do root for Toledo when they're playing somebody out of state. But awesome news about your 3-year-old, man. Been a long time since I've been there, but I remember how exciting that was. My man, Don B. Thanks, Juck. We appreciate the real ones. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you, Don. IO, brother. Hell of a game. A whole lot of fun. You guys are awesome. On the TV above me, I have got the Ducks and the Smelverines. It is 13-7 Ducks. Oregon touchdown is confirmed. So going to be 14-7, just starting the second quarter. And we are all Duck eyes today. The Duck Knights saw. Saw my pants. Is that a duck in your pocket? Or are you happy to see me? Hey, King OH, what a comment here. Hinsman is officially out of the doghouse. Fantastic. Happy for that kid, man. You make one dumb mistake, and I'm sure that there was more to it from that time when that happened to this point that he hasn't really seemingly gotten a shot. He did get sick and lost quite a bit of weight when we had the hand, foot, mouth go through in the preseason that knocked all those offensive linemen out. He lost a ton of weight. There was a picture from him, and he looked absolutely nothing like he looked today. He looked big out there today. He looked full. After he got sick, he was damn near shredded. I mean, it was wild. But happy for that kid, man. Emily says Michigan State is winning. I should check that score and see how Sparty is doing with Indiana, guys. That's a really big game now. That is a really big game as we head forward in this Big Ten race for the Big Ten championship, the Buckeyes do control their own destiny. So it doesn't really matter from Ohio State's perspective. All they got to do is win out, and they're going to be in that Big Ten championship game with most likely Oregon. We'll see what happens there. But nonetheless, it's a big game for Indiana at Michigan State. And I heard people calling that a trap game. I said, there's no way that Indiana is going to sleep on Michigan State when we're talking about it. And it is now 10-7. Michigan State is up. Indiana's got the ball. But we're talking about Aiden Childs, that Michigan State team, really well coached, and one of the best hires of the season is Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. And Kurt Signetti knows that. So there's no way that they are undervaluing the potential that Michigan State could upset them. And they're going to bring it. It might have been, and I haven't seen any of it, Curtis Rourke, maybe a little rusty. I don't know. I would still expect that Indiana absolutely is going to win out there. Caleb Downs, $130. Caleb Downs is insane. When they talked all offseason about Caleb Downs being the number one overall guy in the portal and what an impact he was going to have, it is so reassuring to have him out there. He's like an eraser. Anybody makes a mistake in front of him, he covers it up. Not just that, the leadership, the intelligence. I'm just happy. It makes you feel proud, like that kid's a Buckeye, because he's going to go on after this, whatever he accomplishes at Ohio State, and just be a 10-year NFL vet that just is just a tremendous kid, and he's going to be a tremendous guy for years to come, representing the Buckeye Nation forever. And we really lucked out. We really lucked out on that one. Paul Jones, Caleb is the best safety in college. King OH says, the point spread in that Indiana game was an indicator. Should have told us all something. Are you talking about the Michigan State spread? Where are my picks here? I said, I believe it was 8 points. I believe Indiana was only favored by 8 against Indiana. If I'm remembering that correctly. I made 15 picks. And you can follow those. We are on now 6 straight weeks with the official Juck on Bucks picks. And you can do that at MyBookie, where if you sign up now with the promo code Juck, they're going to match your deposit 100% up to $1,000. Deposit $200, you're going to play with 4. Deposit 4, you're going to play with 8. And I know you probably already got a book. Pull $100 out of your book. Go sign up at MyBookie. Make $100. You don't even need to win a bet. You're going to go make $100 right now with the promo code Juck just for signing up. They'll also give you a $10 casino chip. Put it on 7. Spin the roulette wheel. Tell them Juck sent you. Promo code Juck. Go do it now. MyBookie. Boom. Getting so much smoother at that, guys. Troy V says, did JJ miss that because he was trying to make another circus one-handed catch? I don't think so. I think he slowed down for a second. And then when he sped back up, he didn't have enough of his legs under him to jump, so he could only reach it with one hand. But it did. I could see how it might have looked like that, but I don't. Until we see the all-22 and watch his stride throughout the whole route, we won't be able to tell for sure, but I really don't think so at all. He's so smooth. He's so smooth. I just can't see him doing that. His one-handed catches really, to me, are always out of necessity. But I get your sentiment, because there are a lot of guys now who try or rely on that because they really want to make that highlight catch, which I cannot stand. Bugsy's dad says, Troy, it looked like he let up and realized it, and then realized it was coming his way. Yeah, they said something about the sun. I'm not sure if that was it, but again, we'll be able to tell once we see. Yeah. Troy says, in any event, he's not complaining one bit about JJ, just an observation. Yeah, that's what I took from you, buddy. Billy McBride, one of our Duck guys, says the Ducks will win 31-7. Michigan only scored because of a short field. Okay. I didn't get to see their possession. Uncle Zach, y'all are going to take off after today. I expect a splattering of Indiana. I do too, if I'm being honest. The Duck Knight says Gabriel is going to put up some big numbers. Slow drives will keep Oregon's bug dogs in late. Shane Cup, we are back up. We are back up. The attitude is fantastic. Uncle Zeke brings up a good one here. You can't discount how massive that ticky-tack taunting call was momentum-wise. That was huge. I'm interested in what you guys thought about that call. That to me was, I don't know, man. Like he was just standing up. He did give him a little extra, but it was so minimal, so quick. I don't know. It didn't seem to me like something to be throwing a flag about. And again, it was a penalty that my team benefited from. But just if I'm looking at that, like that's not something I think you should be calling for a 15-yard penalty. I just disagree with that. Kyle says Georgia with a field goal. What is the score of the Dogs game? Georgia, Florida. Dogs are up 3-0. End of the first. Wow. Georgia's a 16.5-point favorite in that one. And I thought that that the Dogs were definitely going to handle business in this. But Kyle's right here when he says the Georgia offense is definitely pretty mid. Mika, Thurman stepped up. We got to see Jelani. Uncle Zeke says Carson Beck, yet to impress him this year. And I'm definitely with him. Jelani with the clutchest catch, man. And it really was. Don says Carson Beck too busy with the old girl. Carson Beck's girlfriend is one of the twins that plays basketball for Miami. They play women's basketball for the University of Miami. They're the Cavender twins or the Calendar twins or something like that. And they're two good-looking blonde twins that are huge on Instagram because they're twins and they're cute. And he's dating one of those girls. So she actually came to his defense after the Alabama game and did a big 10-minute Instagram story just kind of ripping on the public that gets in Carson's DMs and says mean things to him, talking about his appearance, calling him Timmy from South Park. He is a bit of an odd-looking dude. But, yeah, that's uncalled for. Ben Hamilton said Ron James sucks, by the way. Listen, guys, if you want to come in and interact, you're welcome. But don't come in and just take shots at the people that are in here, or I'll just remove you. That's not fun. I don't want to do that. I do this for fun. I don't want to talk. I don't want to hear that. Mika, so proud of the Bucks. Mika, you've been so positive all week. Congratulations. Kyle said it wasn't blatant. Ohio State lost a game in Clemson in 2019 because of a call like that. Yeah, I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like nasty taunting calls that take it over the top, but that to me was that's like an every play thing. You could throw a flag if you're getting that in depth here. Troy, who's on Peacock? I hate Peacock. I have it. I don't want to turn it on because I want to watch YouTube in the 4 split screen when it's not the Buckeyes. I don't watch the Buckeyes in that. But when it's the other games, I'll watch it in the 4 split. But you can't do that with the Peacock game. Mika says, Brandon Innes and Jelani Thurman played well. Hope we continue to spread the ball around and rotate. I was really, really happy at the way Chip got everybody involved so early, and Will Howard, credit to him too. But you had so many guys involved just a couple minutes into the fourth quarter. You had all 4 of your top receivers already involved with targets and receptions in JJ, Carnell, Emeka, and BI. Then you got Jelani involved. You had both backs involved in the receiving game today, and you had Will running the ball. Chip's offense today, fantastic. Just fantastic. Donnie B says they were probably talking trash to each other. Anyway, it's always the last one. Troy says the refs don't want the game to get out of hand in these types of games. They let other parts of the game pretty much play out without penalty. I was okay with it. So Troy was okay with that penalty of the Penn State player stepping over. I believe that was Carnell, right? On the ground there. BC makes a really good point that I think a lot of people can relate to today. Cannot remember the last time I felt like a weight off my chest after a Buckeye game. And there were absolutely so many people that just felt like going into this game. And I said it on Twitter last night. Heading into a top 5 Buckeyes game, there's a vibe that I always feel from people around town, from social media, and now doing the show. Puts me really in tune with the kind of the attitude of the fan base, and the attitude even last night before the game, before a top 5 Buckeyes game, did not feel like it usually feels. It kind of felt like there was a whole lot of people who were just a different kind of nervous heading into this game. Like we were about to lose everything. Like it was all slipping away. And you're right. It does feel like a weight off your chest if you win the game. But the way they won the game and the way they played feels like more than that to me. It just feels like the same renewed confidence that I had coming into this season. It just feels great again. Like everything feels great again just for today. Maybe it feels like that tomorrow. And, sometimes I'm a prisoner to the moment. Maybe I wake up tomorrow and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm overvaluing everything I just saw. Yeah, I mean, you just win a big game, but I just feel like, I came into this season with the Buckeyes as the favorite to win the national championship, predicted them to win the national championship. And last week, my pregame show the other day, my confidence on that was basically all dependent on how they come out and play against Penn State, because I need to see what they do with the offensive line without Josh Simmons. What they tried last week against Nebraska, confidence very low. The plan that I thought they should have gone with from the beginning, they got their best 5 out there, and who they thought was their best 5 for today was Donovan Jackson and Carson Hinsman on the left side. Donovan Jackson at left tackle, I thought should have been the play from the beginning. I needed to see that. I needed to see this today. And now that I've seen this and I've seen them not just look like they could hold up, which is what I was saying all week, can they hold up against a good defense in Penn State? They looked very good. So now that I've seen them look very good, we're right back to where we were. Obviously, you don't have Josh Simmons. It's a huge blow. But this offensive line can still look very good. They are capable of it. So now that I know they're capable of it, nothing's changed in my mind. You know what I mean? Right back to where I was before. Rod says, Cavender twins or Livy Dunn. I'm taking Livy. I'm 100% with you because of the video I was just describing where the one Cavender twin that's dating Carson Beck did the 10-minute Instagram to talk about Carson Beck. Not so good looking without all the filters and all the makeup and everything. But I like mine a little. I like a dark-haired Italian woman. That style's not my style anyway. Mark Zwick wants to point out the goal line stand that was awesome, and it absolutely was. I'm sorry, Troy. Troy says it's Timmy, not Timmy. Julian Fleming was there. Happy for Julian. He got to make a catch. Inconsequential to us. Good for him. I am rooting for his personal success. I think he's a really good kid. Everybody around the Woody really loved him. Probably shouldn't have played as much as he did last year, but good for him. Steven says, it's like the neck slash. You just can't do it. And I'm assuming he's talking about the step over. Honestly, there are times when it's kind of like, I didn't feel like it was an intentional. Maybe it was. I don't know. It just felt like he was standing up. You know what I mean? Like he did look down at him. but it was so brief. I don't know, man. It just felt cheesy. Like, come on. Rod says, did you guys see Penn State chanting "Fire Franklin" as he was leaving the field? I got to be honest, guys. As a Penn State fan, I don't know how you can just be okay with this. This guy's now 3-18 against top 10 coaches. And you're Penn State. You're a school with an enormous alumni base, as big as Ohio State's. The state of Pennsylvania, almost as much talent as the state of Ohio. He doesn't do good in recruiting Pennsylvania, though he says he's doing really good. I just heard him in an interview a couple of weeks ago. He's not. He hasn't for a while. And this mediocrity, not mediocrity. I'm being hyperbolic here. It's just feels like they're okay with being in that second tier. It's almost like this purgatory feeling. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're good. We're good every year. We beat the teams that we should beat, but we can just never quite take the next step. And it feels similar to the way Ohio State has been, but just kind of in the next rung up, where you're right there amongst the top 3 teams, but those other ones on your level are cashing in, winning national championships here and there, and you're just not quite getting that done. But they're just that next step below, where they're just almost making the playoffs, but just can't in the 4-teamer. Now they can in the 12-teamer. And my thought was this game was huge for them, because if they don't beat Ohio State this year, when Ohio State was vulnerable with the injuries, coming into their place in a team everyone was saying was James Franklin's most complete Penn State team since he's been there for a decade. If they don't get it done now, does it really matter to those fans if they make the playoff, the 12-team playoff? They don't have any hope that they can beat a team like Ohio State now because, yeah, they lost by 7, but they know what that game was. They lost by 7, but they really got beat up. The Buckeyes beat them up. It wasn't as close as that scoreboard said. And in the big moments, you got the poor decision down by the goal line. You had the down by the goal line when the Buckeyes made the goal line stand. Poor coaching throughout there. And then you had the poor decision-making before halftime. And it's that kind of stuff that people just jump ship on him for. That people have been slowly over the years. And I'm just surprised. I'm really surprised that the guy's still there. I really am. This dude's now lost 8 in a row to Ohio State. Penn State is not on Ohio State's level as a program. But Penn State should not lose 8 in a row to Ohio State. That just shouldn't be a thing. And this guy is now 1-10 against Ohio State. That's unconscionable. Like, you're Penn State. You should be beating Ohio State at least 25% of the time. You recruit in the top 15 to top 10 range. You should be able to jump up and beat Ohio State 2.5 times out of 10. Like, you just should. I don't know how you expect it. Billy McBride says Tez Johnson is done for the game with what looks like a collarbone or shoulder injury. That's not good. That's not good at all. Luckily for the Ducks, they do have depth, but he is by far and away, to me, the second best receiver in college football, just behind a freshman at Ohio State. Nathan said the way Ohio State finished was perfect. It absolutely was. 10 straight runs. 10 straight runs to ice that puppy out with your back foot on the goal line for the first snap, coming out there when everybody knew they were running the ball, and they absolutely did it. Ooh, Mark Swick says the big lineman for the Cheaters landed and hyperextended his knee, and it looked really bad. Raj of Columbus, dear leader, says the only thing Day is good at is beating on small fry. My guy Brad, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Where you been? Steve also felt like me that was pretty dominating despite the scoreboard. It was a dominating win by Ohio State. Yeah, could not agree more. Now, listen, Disdain Rogue, I'm with you. What a heady play this was, too. Will probably could have taken that run to the house at the end of the game, but he slid because it was over. And I liked it, too. I thought that was, obviously the smart thing to do, especially after you had the ball punched out earlier when you were running. This Dylan Gabriel, Michigan was close to getting to him out of his own end zone, but he was able to get it out. Oregon up 14-7 still. I don't know about you guys. This line was Oregon minus 14.5. I had a real hard time making a pick in the game and eventually just took Oregon because I don't like the other team. Troy said, we won the trenches and won the game. Funny how that happens. Obviously, one of the biggest issues that people have with Brian Day and his tenure, that it seems like the team never quite gets it done in a way you want to in the big games in the trenches. Today, they absolutely did. So props to them. Props to them all the staff, all the players. They represented. Kevin Chandler, who's a Penn State fan, says, as a diehard Nittany Lions fan, I give you guys your flowers. First and goal, and Drew is 6'5", 238. Quarterback sneak, duh. We are. And we didn't see it. Kevin, props to you, buddy. Your dudes fought hard. I feel like your coaching staff let them down. And what Rod says here, or how do you not give it to 44, who got you down there on two massive plays right before that? And I kind of hate it for you guys that you're stuck in this purgatory with him. Was he John? Mika says the kid was John. I must have missed that part. Talking about the penalty that they got for 15 yards for stepping over JJ. And Mika's emotional. I was pretty emotional right after the game, too. I needed a minute to compose myself, man. Even the beginning of this, I was talking so fast. Yeah, that was just huge. It was huge. And seeing the way they iced it off at the end was just awesome. K Supreme says Will Howard was not the reason for that win. No, he was not the reason for that win. But you definitely needed the solid play from him to win the game. But no, he was not the one single reason. He did have a really bad pick. He had a really bad that one ball to Carnell, that long ball to Carnell down the right sideline. Carnell was wide open. Carnell scores if that's just a decent ball. It was a bad ball. Don't forget he fumbled. We're all aware that he fumbled, Tom. We're aware. He got the ball punched out. It can happen to the best of you. What did he do the second time he broke it? He slid, iced the game out. You learned from your mistakes. It should have been a touchdown. It was also a really great read and run, and he had a couple of those today. Professor Chaos says, hopefully y'all haven't been bitching the last hour. What is there to bitch about? I don't know. That's the thing. The guys like you kill me. When there are things to bitch about, people bitch. When there are things to be happy about, people are happy. But there is a sect of people that when there are things to bitch about and people are bitching, act like there's nothing to bitch about. And that's just not the case. Last week, there were things to bitch about. Lisa, a very level-headed Buckeye fan. What do you got to say, Lisa? Lisa says, I think I'm happy, but just shocked after everyone, including myself, was doubting our offensive line and Fry. But we got the win, and our season is still all in play and our goals for this year. I feel similar to you, Lisa. Shocked by that offensive line performance. Absolutely. Obviously, it's what we were really looking forward to. But to say I expected it would be a total lie. I did not. Andrew, if Ohio State executed cleanly, we win that game by 20 or more points. No doubt. That was it just felt, when we look, I read the stats off. It felt like you were not only in control, but really just kind of beating them up the whole game. Even though the score was so close, were you ever feeling like in danger? I really wasn't. Even when they got the ball down inside the 5, I just felt like we got this. I just felt really confident. That's a great question, Emily. Emily said, do those recruits see us different now, you think, the ones you spoke with last week? Certainly a benefit. There's been some doubt. There's been a lot of doubt. Art Buck makes a good point. Yeah, he's bitching about bitching. And like, that's the thing. Richie Dub says, Juck bitches with reason, Zach too. Some of these other podcasters deserves the ridicule, though. I mean, like, I'm just, when there's things that aren't great, if you don't point it out, then you aren't being genuine. If you hide when there's reason to be concerned, if you don't talk about it, then you're not being genuine and authentic. And like, honestly, if I wasn't genuine or authentic, it's probably the number one compliment I ever got doing this show and starting this show was like, you're just genuine. You just say what you think and you don't care who it offends. But you also are super excited when things are good. So that's it, man. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And, there's always going to be people who don't like you or don't like the way you get down. And that's okay. I've learned to accept that. I'd have started this show 5 years ago if I could have accepted that back then, but I couldn't. I couldn't handle being scrutinized like that, which is why I waited so long. Gorky, what's up, brother? Thanks for the 2. Jim Knowles heard Zach and earned his cash. Absolutely, man. Jim Knowles was great today. Jim Knowles was fantastic. Another Ducks touchdown. And the Ducks take a 21-7 lead. Looking at that stadium, and they're playing at the Big House, the Ducks in Michigan, versus the aerial shots, which, by the way, guys, the aerial shots at Penn State today, just gorgeous, wasn't it? It just looked beautiful. The setting. This one, not so much. It's so bland and boring. That big dumb bowl. The field is dug down into the ground. I don't like it at all. Of course I don't. Dago says Georgia's in trouble. What's going on with Georgia? What are the Dogs doing? Florida's up 7-3. Get out of town. I'll be damned. How's Lagway doing? He's going to be so good, man. DJ Lagway, Florida's freshman quarterback. Kid's going to be really good. Rod says Mike Leach passing away really devastated Mississippi State. Blown out at home by Toledo and now down 10-0 to UMass. My gosh. Carson Beck with 2 interceptions already against Florida. Looking like a deer in the headlights. Do you remember the beginning of the season, how people were talking about Carson Beck? And this was the only reason that Ohio State wasn't the favorite, according to everyone who had them the favorite, was because the difference, they had Carson Beck, Ohio State did not. They gave Ohio State the check boxes in most areas, even over Georgia. Offensive line wasn't one, but it was the difference of having that veteran quarterback who threw for 4,000 yards last year, Carson Beck. Carson Beck has been very pedestrian this year. This is a guy who somehow he's still in the top 10 of the Heisman odds. Do you know that? That's just crazy. He's not been that at all. As Colston Loveland catches a ball and he's rumbling, stumbling, bumbling down inside the 20. He's a smooth looking tight end, man. He really is. Uncle Zeke Bring back the protected games. I want to play Ohio State every year. You're a Penn State fan, huh? I don't know if you watch me much, probably not, since you're a Penn State fan, but I've been railing against this all week. I'm absolutely furious that Ohio State and Penn State did not keep this game protected. When you look at schools like Iowa, who protected Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, they protected 3 games. Michigan protected Ohio State and Michigan State, and Ohio State only protected Michigan. Could have protected Penn State. Now we don't get to see this game for 2 years. And this is a game I love. Every year it's an awesome game. And you look again at this year, even though many of us watching that are Buckeye fans feel like the Buckeyes won that game, had it in control the whole time. It was a 7-point game, but it was a top 5 game. I want to play those. I want to play those big games. Lisa says, whose idea was it not to protect it? There's no doubt it was Ohio State who made the ultimate decision. Penn State would have definitely agreed to protect it had Ohio State wanted to, but it's just part of scheduling for national championships and wanting to be in the playoffs and the postseason. It's always a game that's a risk, right? It's a risk when you play a team that's usually good. I just disagree. I disagree with the whole philosophy. I think you should always try to strive to add more good games. We're college football fans because we love college football. What's more exciting than good games? I don't like scheduling just for national championships. It bothers me. It particularly bothers me. This is now a series that's been played every year since 1993, right? 1993. That's not 2007. You know what I mean? That's a chunk of history there. And I'm just, you know what? Let's blame Penn State. If you want to keep running around saying unrivaled and that's your big deal, you shouldn't be mad about not having any protected games. But welcome, buddy. You're always welcome here. As long as it's not just to come in and talk crap. We like to have fans of other programs around here because it gives us some perspective that we don't always get. Lisa likes it too. Yo, Andy, what's up, buddy? Andy says the Big Ten will get more into the playoff than the SEC. I sat down last night, guys, and I was running around all different playoff scenarios, and we have got we're in for a shock this year because, like I've pulled up many times, that every year outside of 2019 was an odd year. Taking this system right now, this 12-team system, and I ran it back the last 10 years. And every year outside of 2019, if you were a 10-2 team, you were pretty much, you're in, especially if you're a brand name team in the SEC or the Big Ten. 2019 was different. 2019 saw 3 teams, 2 of which were Alabama and Notre Dame at 10-2 in the regular season, who would not have made this system. And the difference in 2019, why that was, there were just a lot of good teams. This year is shaping up to be a year like that. There are even several scenarios that I was mapping out that Indiana at 11-1 might not make it with 1 loss to Ohio State, that they might be going head to head with the committee against a 10-2 Alabama and potentially give the nod to Alabama. There's scenarios where a lot of 2-loss teams in the SEC and in the Big Ten could potentially miss the playoff, which is just not what I expected heading into this playoff, this first rendition. I definitely thought Big Ten, SEC, 10-2, lock, stock, you're in. Raj of Columbus, dear leader, does Juck consider Penn State a rival? Me personally, I don't mind Ohio State not playing them, especially if Oregon is the replacement. That's just the thing, Raj. They're not. Oregon's not protected. We have no guarantee that we're going to play them every year. You could have years where you don't play either of them. And that's the thing. Like, I want to play the best of the best in the Big Ten every year. If you could give me get the next 2 weeks, this probably sets up nicely, but let's just say you expected Indiana to be regular Indiana. So you got Penn State now, and then you've got Northwestern, Purdue. I don't even know if that's the right order. Northwestern, Purdue, Indiana before the game, which, okay, that's nice because you're going to play the game and then go to the Big Ten championship and then the playoffs. It's just unfortunate to only have, if you look at Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State, that's 3 big games. I expected with conference expansion, Indiana's a surprise. I'm just saying, like, before the season, we're looking at those 3 games. Like, that's 3 big games. This year, you didn't play a good out-of-conference game, which is a rare thing. So we can say we would usually have that. That's 4 big games in the regular season. Some people are happy with that. I just feel like you could do better. I feel like you could have 5 big games every year. Some years have 6. That would be great. Because again, I'm a college football fan. I want big games. That's what I get juiced for. That's what I live for. And the postseason, if you're good enough, you're going to make it. Even if you lose a big game, if you play it tight, they know. They always reward you if you're good enough. If you are Ohio State and you're a team that has talent and they know that, you always get the benefit of the doubt because they think that you can always beat somebody when it comes down to it. K Supreme, not an OSU fan, just curious because y'all had a close one with Nebraska. I didn't see your first question, buddy. Are we satisfied with the win? Hell yeah. Yeah, man, I know what the noise is. Like, Ohio State fans aren't going to give Ryan Day credit for a win against Penn State because it's just Penn State. If we won this game by a point, we would be absolutely just as happy as we are now. That's just a bunch of nonsense, the way they describe us. And unfortunately, there's a lot in our own fan base who would prefer to sit around and talk about how toxic the fan base is than the actual opponent, which I'll never understand. Lisa, with an opinion on Ryan Day. Lisa says, I personally don't feel like fans can bash Day too much because he lost by 1 point on the road against Oregon and then beat an undefeated top-ranked Penn State. And I think our team has reached. Yes, absolutely. This year so far, you have checked all the boxes. And for me, this is always more about how you play than what the results are. The Oregon game, there were some concerning things coming out of that game. And you still almost won the damn game. All in all, there were some things that bothered me about that Oregon game. The lack of pressure was one of the main ones. What have they done? So far, they've addressed it. So that's great. Sometimes you learn more coming out of a loss than you do out of a win. And it was an opportunity to have a mid-season game where you could learn some things before you got into the postseason. And you learned that the 4-man pressure was not going to be good enough against a big team, a good team. Because remember, early on in the season, we were looking great with those 4 up front. And I was thinking, this is the year. Jack, over under 10.5, 11 sacks. Give me the over. I thought that was going to be what we were looking at. Oregon proved to me, okay, that's not. And you're going to have to do something different to get pressure. You do it today. You do it last week. Last week was, they tried a lot of things, and I like them trying things. And there's people who say, look, you need to get pressure with 4 men. You can't just rely on a blitz. You do, but if you're not, you need to be able to and willing to throw some different things at them. And they're showing that they are. So that's great. You learn that from the loss. And then you win this big game on the road at Penn State. This is a top 5 game, man. Absolutely. You get a hell of a lot of credit for that. But to me, the most important thing about today was, even if you lost, was how you played. Does this team have heart? Does this team play with juice? Or do they look flat, like they don't want to be there, like they have poor leadership? All the things that they looked like last week, whether it was true or not, I don't think it's true. But that's how it looked. And you see a bunch of those games in a row, and you just kind of start falling out on the team. You know what I mean? So how did you look today against Penn State? You looked like you wanted to be there. You wanted to win. You love college football. You love being an Ohio State football player. Like, it all looked like that. If you're a coach and your team plays like that for you, I support you. You know what I mean? And right now, Ryan Day's team is playing like that for him. I support him. I don't think anybody, the thing is, and I was talking to people all last week, like, guys, I know you're feeling like you're on edge here, but let's keep in mind, if Ohio State wins this game and looks great doing it, you're going to feel pretty silly jumping off the bandwagon, right? Like, and there were a lot that did last week. They jumped straight off. Like, I'm done with this guy. I've had enough. Might want to give it one more week here because all the goals are right out in front. And sure enough, here we are. Not only are all the goals right out in front, you could still potentially match up with Oregon for the Big Ten championship. And what if you win that? Then you've beaten everybody on your schedule heading into the playoffs. It's all right there. And I certainly feel a hell of a lot more confident in the odds of that now that I've seen this offensive line play together and look like they looked. I don't know if Carson Hinsman's going to be the plan moving forward. Certainly seems like a good possibility after watching that. Dago, what's up, buddy? Dago says Franklin's about to move Penn State to the Pac-12 to team up with Washington State and Oregon State and all the teams that they have pilfered from out there in the Mountain West. Andy says Sabanless Alabama is not as exciting as Cinderella since Indiana. Think about what sells in March Madness. For sure, this Indiana team in the playoffs is exciting as hell. But the Kalen DeBoer in year one story is very exciting as well, I think, to a lot of people. Back looking terrible. Zeke says, so you're a Pitt grad that cheers for Penn State. Feinbaum is a Tennessee grad that loves Bama, and that is absolutely true. Rod says that the Michigan fans are going to be pounding the narrative that James Franklin lost that game. Ohio State's still not good. Beats someone other than Penn State. And of course, we knew that line was coming as Oregon just scored on them again. And it's now going to be 28-10 heading into the halftime. Oregon scored with 35 seconds left from the 25-yard line. Dylan Gabriel, is that a run? Oh my gosh. Dylan Gabriel straight up the gut. Ouch. That hurts. My guy Andy, 4-3 Florida, making Georgia look like garbage. I'm going to have to turn this game here in a minute here. Oh, no. Other Andrew says DJ Lagway hurt. Oh, no. Oh, no. Don said he's leaving on a cart. Are you kidding me? He's that hurt? I got to change the channel, guys. Aspetta un momento. This is, what a shame, dude. What a shame. How about Ole Miss destroying Arkansas today? Did not see that coming. I lost that bet big time. Curious to see Iowa State today, too. What's the score of that one? I'll tell you what, though. I do love seeing the Georgia and Florida uniforms on the field against each other. Always an exciting one for me. I grew up rooting for the Dogs in this one really, really hard. Florida dominated them every year. I feel like it was 20 straight years or something that Florida beat the Dogs. And my cousin Marky was from Georgia, so I always rooted for the Dogs with him, for him in the SEC. And then he grew up and decided to go to college to Alabama and flipped his allegiance from Georgia to Alabama, which I don't like. I don't like at all. Saw him at a family reunion, and he had a Bama on his license plate. It was pretty crushing to me, really, to be honest. It really was. I don't know how you do that, man. I don't know how you're from Georgia, and just because you go to Alabama, you just decide that that's your allegiance now. I can't get down with that, Marky. Can't get down with it, Marky Phillips. There you go. That's the story about that. Troy says, Florida down to a transfer from Yale. Bugsy's dad says, I need to go back and see the touchdown catch that was called back from Oregon. Rod thinks Iowa State is a fraud. Come on, Rocco! Rocco Becht, baby. Richie Dubb says, peace, everyone. Go Bucks. Stop trying to fire Ryan Day. He's going to break through, and he's our guy. He's certainly going to have some people feeling much better for the next couple of weeks. That's for sure. Lisa says, who cares what they think about our team? I already told them that they were going to lose to Oregon, and they are currently getting blown out. Yes, they are. All right, my friends, we are at an hour and 40 minutes in the post-game show. My pipes are starting to feel a little worn out, and I have got some things that I'm going to have to get done so I can settle into the next round of games here, at least for the second half. I appreciate you all so much, those of you who have stuck around this long. A pretty large number for our post-game show. You guys are the best, man. Tomorrow, Dylan's going to get back in town. Dylan's been at Happy Valley, and I'm going to have Dylan back on. Dylan and I are going to do a live show, talk about his experience yesterday, and we will bring that to you guys probably around 11 o'clock, I'd imagine. I'll have to get with Dylan and see, but I think 11 tomorrow, Dylan and I will pop back on. So if you guys got any questions for Dylan, or you can think of anything you want to talk to Dylan about, we're going to be on live tomorrow at 11. So pop in and say hello to us tomorrow after we all get a day to soak in all the rest of the games and look at all the rest of the stats, dig in on that. Sometimes after a night of sleep, we think about some things or feel a different way about some things, get happier, get madder, whatever. So we'll come back on tomorrow and talk about the game a little more at 11, as well as seeing how the rest of these college football games shake out. So I appreciate you all so much for joining me on a very joyous post-game show as our Buckeyes defeat the Penn State Nittany Lions by a score of 20 to 13? Or was it 21? Was it 20 to 13? We beat them by 7. We beat them by 7, and that's good enough for me. Good enough for the win, and the performance was one that was something we can be proud of. So very happy about that. All right, guys, I will talk to you tomorrow, and have a great day. Juck on Bucks out. Hey, it's Juck.
Juck? Who is Juck?
Juck on Bucks.
Juck on Bucks. Juck on Bucks?
Juck.
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 Juck on Bucks.
My guy, Juck.
Juck on Bucks.
My buddy Juck.
Juck is the Juck.
It's Juck on Bucks.
Okay. Juck is junk.
The Juckeyes.
The Juckeyes.
Juck on Bucks.
Junk. Juck. Not junk. Juck.